I am so excited to have Tree Fine here with me today. Tree has been with the SpyFu RivalFlow team for 10 years now. He specializes in conversion rate optimization and honestly has been our AI aficionado here even before RivalFlow. Hi, Tree. How you doing?
Hey, Patrick. Hey, Internet.
Can you give us your top level perspectives on the relevancy of AI in today's digital landscape?
Sure. I think it's like this almost an evolving relevance, and I think a lot of the products or what we know about AI right now is kind of built on that future relevance that's coming. There are a lot of apps that come out, and we're kind of waiting for AI to become relevant with everything. And right now, it's relevant with some things, right? And we're latching on to that. We're looking at how it can help with copy, how it can organize data, and do things. But these things that make it relevant are kind of coming as AI evolves. And so we're kind of at like the start of this boom or this bubble, whatever you want to consider it, going forward. But the relevance, I think, is going to exponentially increase. So as these large language models, these AIs become more capable, essentially giving us tools. It's like how relevant is a screwdriver before you have it. But there are many ways to put a screwdriver into wood, right? And you could twist it with your fingers or hammer it in. But ultimately, once you find the relevant tool, it takes over, and no one would put a screwdriver into wood or a screw into wood any other way now. I think that we're on kind of this exponential growth curve of relevancy for AI. It's going to be fitting into the different areas as it goes.
Okay. And you think we're kind of at the beginning stages of that?
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? We're somewhere in the beginning. It's it's pretty new to the general public. Let's call it maybe a year. There are obviously companies and other teams that have been working on this stuff for decades, actually. But really, it's become relevant to internet users and businesses in our world, kind of in a daily, really recently over the last year.
Mhm. Yeah. And in terms of relevancy, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that can be that word can be used, like relevancy in terms of like Siri talking back to you, relevancy in terms of like getting answers from Chat GPT, whereas before you would Google it. Is that what you're talking about, kind of the overall thing, or are you talking about something specific?
A bit of both. I think that we're going to kind of stay focused in our conversations, kind of how it becomes relevant, how AI is relevant to business and marketing and customers and supply and demand and
Mhm.
all the things that make a business work. Um, and so again, more and more we're finding relevance in those areas. I mean, just looking at the amount of content production, of course, that's coming from businesses now because of AI and just kind of the massive amounts of content that can be created or the speed at which it can be created has really shifted the game, for all business landscapes kind of immediately. Almost every online business that I'm aware of has introduced AI at some layer of their tools or their products.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of crazy to see that evolution. Um,
And rapidly.
and rapidly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that you have mentioned and that I've seen around online is that AI is more than just like the search and all that stuff. When you take it to the next level, we're starting to talk about AI assistants and AI copilots. Can you briefly explain what those are and what their impact is going to be for the future of content, search, and the internet?
Sure. Yeah. Like, the broad scope is that we're really familiar with using software, and software we've been using for a long time to accomplish tasks. And software is really based on rules, and sometimes those rules are hard to manipulate. So if you have a piece of software that you want to do a tool, well, it's going to do what it says it can do and what it's designed to do within its rules, its boundaries. Um, AI is going to produce a slightly different type of tool for users, and so these AI copilots are really going to be able to look at. Think of it as a changing rule set. So I can say, hey, software, I want you to do this within my rule set, and let's custom define that rule set. So I think as kind of a broad explanation of copilots is that they'll be able to adapt to your likes, your interests, your rules, your goals, and then help you accomplish those tasks based on that rule set. It might be a little bit too broad. We can dive in.
Yeah, let's
Um,
dive in. Let's dive in.
something to think about, and kind of maybe the theme of this conversation is that these co-pilots are going to be one of the biggest power of them is autonomy. And so these co-pilots are going to be doing things, not necessarily every time we ask them, but way more than that. And so similar to how we have a lot of bot traffic in the internet right now, there are many bots that are going to websites and doing things. And sometimes people who know how to program these bots can write a bot to do a specific thing on a specific site. These AIs are going to be like that on steroids. And these AIs are going to be able to browse the internet. They're going to become a large portion of the browsing internet. And as such, I think one of the topics we want to discuss is this basically produces a new internet user, if you will, a new customer. If you're a business, you're going to have a new base of browsers that are viewing your website and your products and services that acts vastly different because it's a bot, it's an AI. And so the overlap of that kind of population of AI browsers and human browsers is what's really going to make things exciting, but also demand some change in business models and how we design products and services, if indeed we have a new internet user who's browsing our services and products.
And by the new internet user, you mean like a co-pilot, like an AI
These co-pilots,
co-pilot.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're going to be working kind of on behalf of us. These co-pilots are going to get built in at kind of different levels. You'll have them in your operating system. You'll have them in your Windows computer, your Mac, and they will look at everything that's on your screen and be able to assist with many things. So yeah, eventually we're going to task them with doing many things, like a lot of our mundane tasks that we do with work. Obviously, we use AI to automate and to speed things up. So yeah, that's the internet user I'm referring to, is the autonomy that's going to come generally directed by a user. But yeah, these bots are going to become fairly prevalent.
Mm-hmm. What do you think from like a ground level is going to be the most, like maybe the first signs of all of this, or are we already seeing it, like co-pilots and assistants?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a bit of it. It's funny, early on in the onset of as soon as ChatGPT really became a thing and everyone was kind of blown away and kind of questioning what can be done with it, there were a lot of developers, software developers, who created these co-pilots, very early iterations of them. And so that kind of iterative process of co-pilots, this agentic AGI or agentic AI, as we would think about it, these agents are they're kind of the main focus. I know with the operating systems right now, like with Microsoft and Apple, they really want to create an assistant for you to kind of use your computer with you, use the websites with you, shop Amazon with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I'd say that we're getting to bigger levels of these copilots, since previously they were not part of Windows or Mac. They were some kind of rough around the edges apps that have been released over the last year, and they're amazing. But they're getting refined, and they're about to get a whole lot better.
Okay. Nice. And are just like data, are us normal like users gonna be using these eventually, do you think? Or is it
Yeah,
mostly businesses?
absolutely. That's a good question. I think that I think the home user, if you will, is going to have their introduction to this. I mean, ChatGPT was kind of like getting your toes in the water, but pretty soon, like I said, we're going to kind of have that co-pilot running alongside us with everything we do on our computer.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's going to kind of normalize the usage. And people, as the AIs become more skilled and more able, of course, will rely on the copilots more and more. So we'll find tasks that they can do, which save us time and money. Um, and that task list will just continue to grow.
So are they, so with all of this, with shopping, with everything, with these assistants, are we still, is that mostly for like data gathering. I mean, that's been one of the like the unseen forces in driving the internet forward. Data on top of data, for better or worse, and how it's distributed. How does all of that evolve with the introduction of AI?
Yeah, interesting. One of the things that these copilots do is they give us as the user the ability to scrape the internet kind of at a level that we hadn't previously done. If you were a programmer and you knew how to write some bots, you could write a bot to scrape the internet. But that's a slim portion of the global population that was able to do that. And so now we're kind of leveling the playing field and we're giving this kind of pretty valuable tool to users to be able to gather data. And there's a lot of data out there. In fact, this kind of follows into uh, something else we'll touch on, but AIs are really able to kind of free of charge find answers and services because the internet's really large. And if you scrape the internet enough, you can usually find what you want without paying for it. And so that's an interesting dynamic that will challenge the internet going forward.
Huh. And with AI doing the scraping, it'll be easier to obtain that knowledge for free. Uh,
Absolutely. Yes.
hmm. So for so this sounds like both good and bad, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe that's not the point of the internet. It's just different challenges that we need to be aware of. What should we look for? Like, what should we look forward to or protect ourselves against, either as a business or as an individual?
Maybe mobile phones are a good lesson. There was a point in I think it was like 2011 or something like that, and some of the data I looked at recently, where X percentage of global internet traffic was on mobile. And the conversation was had back then in 2011 saying, internet traffic on mobile is probably going to increase. How do we prepare for that? How do we deal with this? There's a
Uh-huh.
new internet user coming. And we all heard about it. And now we look at internet traffic being consumed by more than 60% mobile. And so we've now kind of maybe full circle, we've seen kind of the result that we talked about 10 years ago. And so AI is going to be very similar. So I think as far as watching out, I think we've got the signs that AI can automate certain things and that that's rapidly evolving or improving.
Mhm.
So I think it's very similar. And I think that over the next couple of years, we're just going to see this shift of the amount of internet traffic that is AI versus human. Um, and each of those AIs probably has a human partner. And so that's another interesting dynamic. So when you're looking at this kind of landscape as a business, you're now dealing with kind of a team that you're trying to convert, not just a single human user, but a human user who's got assistance that is looking at all the reviews on your product. It's digging through all of your data. It's trying to find out what your site uptime is. It's going to be able to find things that we would never really spend the time doing to vet a product or service, but AI will absolutely do all of that. So that's a shift, and businesses really need to be aware. If you run an online business, you need to be aware that your traffic is going to start shifting, just as it did with mobile traffic, and how important that becomes at different stages when you realize you're releasing something that needs to be built for that audience.
That's fascinating because now the main policy is like mobile first. You got to optimize for mobile. Wow. And so you think maybe a similar thing will be with AI, but it's like kind of like it's not the first experience we've had with this. You've mentioned bots before and how we kind of had to optimize for bots. Is how what do you think that's going to look like for AI and the steps you can take to optimize for this new type of user?
That's a really good question. I was thinking about SpyFu, and SpyFu is one of many companies that has kind of a free layer to their service. And these free layers, while they work fine generally, AIs are very good at exploiting things. AIs can go to a free layer of your product and use it a million times in an hour and get the answers they want without paying for the full price of your service. And so I think that freemium models and a lot of kind of pricing models will need to be reevaluated, knowing that AI can kind of relentlessly use your service, even in its throttled mode or its free tier, and kind of get maximum value out of it. And so that might require a bit of a balancing act on your end to readjust what you allow AI's access to. So I think just as bots, and just as humans, we're going to kind of have a rule set for the type of content we deliver to AIs, whether or not that content is coming through a web page because the AI is browsing like a human would, or if it's coming through an API because you have an API accessible to an AI. And so there's different ways to feed data to the AI that are a bit different. And the manner in which you serve data to them would be different versus a human. And so those shifts, I think those shifts are going to happen just like mobile. It's a good comparison. I think AI is a bit more unknown and maybe growing a bit quicker.
But it's probably just like mobile. It's probably good to get ahead of it as much as you can, just to get a head start, maybe.
Absolutely.
Right. And you mentioned APIs, and I've always found APIs to be a bit intimidating, but with all of this data hunger that AI provides and the accessibility, should we as a user become more familiar with AI, with APIs in general, and probably how to use it with AI? And also on the business end, should we add protections to our APIs so we don't, so AI doesn't just like so, drain all your data and cost $1 million in one day?
Sure. Yeah, no, those go hand in hand. I think I think it's valuable to understand AIs. It kind of helps me put into perspective what the relevance of AIs is going to be moving forward. API is a very direct way to give information about a product without any of the visuals, right? No web page to view. So if I, as a human user, I want to buy a product on a website and I have to browse through 1,000 products, it's going to take me time. It's going to take me a lot of time because I'm pretty slow. I can only read so fast. But if I could just say, hey, show me all the products that you offer within this criteria, and show me all of the reviews all around the internet about those products, then I'm now accessing information in a vastly different way. And I've mostly bypassed marketing, and this could be a crucial thing. It's kind of like Google search. Google search has over the years directed people straight into the page that they want to get to rather than the beginning of your marketing funnel. Rather than sending users to your landing page and letting the user go through the process that you've designed, Google said, no, we'll do some of the heavy lifting and inform the user that this is where they should go, and they'll just send the user straight to your product page. So again, the journey is different, but understanding where APIs play a role, APIs are really just a great way to facilitate giving data to AIs. Because you don't have to build a website to provide that data to an AI. An AI doesn't necessarily need to read through your marketing pages. So that's kind of the nutshell version of why APIs would be valuable. And then understanding it at that level kind of helps you understand that there will be a different way to provide content to AIs versus humans. And I think that's more so the important thing. It's to be aware that we are going to have a new kind of user, kind of like Googlebot. And Googlebot wants to see certain things when it comes to your website. It's trying to validate certain things. Well, these AIs are going to be trying to validate certain things too, on behalf of the user's criteria, right? The user wants a superior service and product.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a bit of a balancing act. How do you provide content to an AI and eventually a human that's going to get them to convert and buy your product or service? And that's kind of yes, planning now, absolutely. It's a bit unknown. And again, AI has a bunch of limits. So as AI becomes more skilled, we really have to kind of keep up every time there's a jump. And so, yeah, it's just going to be this iterative process of learning how to convert a copilot into your paying customer is what you want in the end if you're a business.
I mean, as a searcher, it sounds fantastic. If I can type into AI, like find me the best skillets and have all the reviews from the internet, that sounds incredible.
Right, that's good, right? And it's also, and that means that some company who doesn't have reviews might not meet your criteria as the user. As the user, your standards might go way up because now you've got tools that allow for that. Your standards now can be based on 1,000 hours of research that AIs did for you versus 3 hours of research that you would have done on your own, let's say.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I mean, so like if all of these if these assistants and co-pilots are doing all the research, kind of the top and mid funnel levels of this research, when does like the old like you as a human, like when does that person come into play, and when should uh how should a business anticipate this new era?
That is the ultimate question. I think each business is going to have kind of its own scenario, right? You could think about kind of the co-pilot scenario in like setting an appointment for a doctor, let's say, and how AI is going to handle some of the mundane stuff. Maybe AI will find the doctor, maybe AI will schedule the appointment. And so you might get a phone call, and the phone call is going to be maybe unexpected and definitely not something that you are actively working on. And the phone call might be from the doctor saying, hey, we've got your appointment scheduled. So now you as the user are kind of being inserted into this process that AI started. I think sometimes us human users, we will start the process and AI will fill certain gaps. And often AI might start the process and will fill certain gaps.
Mhm.
Or maybe we're just notified when the ultimate skillet has been found and AI says, we found your skillet, are you ready to buy it? And we give the yes or no, and that's the end of it. In that case, we've almost bypassed the entire user journey that said skillet company has put in place for us. Um, so yeah, that dynamic is interesting. We will be inserted. We will join along with the AI, right? They're a co-pilot, at least initially. There's definitely not like full autonomy with these things yet. So it's going to be a bit of back and forth. I imagine these co-pilots, they'll notify us. They'll ask us questions. Hey, I found your skillet, but they have a green one and an orange one. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
And so this interactive process is going to be handy. And kind of to throw into the mix, this is where APIs become really important, or how you provide information to the AI, because the AI is going to be kind of translating. It's going to be a translator for you, if you will. It's going to go down this journey and kind of update you on things that it thinks you should know, and follow your rule set. And so the more data that we can, as a business, the more data that we can feed to an AI, the better, because that AI is now going to be able to inform the customer.
Mhm.
If we're missing certain data from our websites that other competitors might have, that could turn out to be a really bad thing going forward.
Yeah. I mean, the way you talk to AI is different than how you talk to an actual human consumer. I mean, this seems very fresh. Like this is on the near horizon. So, how would you optimize differently talking to a human user versus talking to an AI assistant? Opening stages of it.
Sure. Yeah, excellent question. That's a really tricky one. I don't know how we're going to blend that going forward, but humans definitely buy for different reasons. We make decisions based on emotion, which AI is not going to have, right? It's going to be hard to get AI to laugh because humor is going to be treated differently. And so we use all of these kind of engagement levers, if you will. We use all of these tools in our arsenal as marketers and as business owners to make our product look fancy, right? Sound fancy, be funny, have a voice. And all these things are going to be viewed completely differently by AI, right? They matter to us. We care about brands and voice and packaging and humor, but how we deal with AI on that level is going to be different. And I can't say I know how to paint that picture yet, but I do know that it's different.
Yeah. Um, that's incredible. It kind of sounds like what we're gonna have to do is like create almost two sites, one that speaks to the AI that attracts the AI, and then one that speaks to the human.
Yeah, it's very similar to the whole mobile shift that we see, and how you have to kind of start optimizing for this what was once a very small audience is now an enormous, the majority audience, if you will. Also, don't quote me on numbers. I'm just trying to paint the picture. I don't know the actual statistics of what the mobile usage is this month,
Yeah.
but I know it's right around 60%. Yeah.
Well, I know every time I try and go to a site on mobile and it doesn't work on mobile, I just get so frustrated. Um, and that's just kind of a silly change in mobile.
Mobile's a really good example of where the click to call button becomes a thing. And click to call, and it's almost made its way into desktop as well, right? And so now when you click a phone number, your browser will ask if you want to call it. But click to call is a big thing. Ads are kind of built for mobile versus not in that respect. So yeah, we're going to see that similar type of shift. I think talking to users, I think it's going to happen at all levels too. At the ad level, a good example. If an AI is trying to find the top companies on Google or surfing the internet, these ads probably need to have less humor in them, let's say, or less of a voice and more information, right? But that's not good for a user. So yeah, this balancing act is going to be fascinating. And again, I don't know what that picture is going to look like going forward, but the shift is starting now. And I think being aware of it is kind of the first goal, just realizing that you have a new type of user that's coming. It's going to be very small initially, and it's going to grow over time. Um, so maybe in the next couple months, we'll see some of these copilots doing some of the work as we get these operating systems that are coming out with AI built into them at the ground floor, like
What do you think?
Microsoft and Apple.
Looking into your crystal ball, what do you think? What signs do you think people should look for to notice that this change is happening, especially in their industry?
Man, I imagine I only go so deep when it comes to tech and how we would identify bot traffic, but I imagine that at the tech level, that we will be able to identify this traffic, and maybe there will become some kind of standard or norm, just as bots, just like Googlebot. Googlebot doesn't come to the site anonymously. It says, "Hey, I'm Googlebot." And so I think that we will have a similar situation going forward. Same with mobile traffic. When you come to a website on your mobile phone, you actually tell the website, you're saying, "Hey, I'm on a mobile phone. Show me this version of your site," and it does that.
Mhm.
So I think we'll see similar. So watching the traffic, we're probably really early. We're probably really early. So to look for AI traffic on your website, you might have a little bit. I've played around with some AIs and I've scraped the internet with them. And I know that there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other users doing the same thing. But again, that's going to just increase. So I think watching out for that bot traffic and keeping up with what these standards are. There are going to be standards that will get put into place. It will become the norm, similar to how we deal with other autonomous bot traffic currently.
Well, this has been an enlightening conversation. I love talking about the future, especially the near future and stuff that we can sink our teeth into like within the year and be like, we were right. Or, this is what we were talking about. So what is the biggest lesson from this conversation that you would like someone watching to take away? What should they write on the post-it note and stick to their refrigerator?
Sure. Yeah, I think first and foremost, know what's coming with AI. Know when these jumps are going to affect your business. Know when the new iterations of operating systems are coming out and these copilots are coming out. As a business, leverage these things right away. Um, welcome AI bots to your site. It's a bit early to do that. Like I said, we don't really have that traffic yet, but think about it. Think about how you're going to onboard these AIs, right? Think about how you're going to stop an AI from bouncing on your site. If they come to your site on behalf of a user, how are you going to retain them, right? How are you going to feed them all the info that they can relay to their owner? So I think just kind of putting some overarching plans in place to be aware of how you're going to deal with these users. And also, many companies, if not all, have a data problem. And what I mean by that is that our data usually has some holes, anomalies. When you look at the data, it's not it could be confusing. Well, if we're leveraging that data to give to an AI, the AI is going to identify those confusions, those holes in your data. If you give, you know, a huge amount of data to a user, a human user, it could take us quite a while or ever before we find some discrepancy in it. But AIs will be able to hunt that down and find it. So I think it's very important if you run, let's say, an e-commerce store, to make sure that you don't have any conflicts in your pricing between a price here versus maybe you say that it's a different price on a different page. So where that's not as critical to us, because we can kind of understand that mistakes happen and we can click live chat and ask, hey, which price is correct? The AI might handle that different. The AI might see that as kind of a red flag and that you don't have your data in order, and it might bounce. And so that would be horrible. We don't want AI customers bouncing from our SaaS websites, right?
Yeah.
How do we stop that? So these are things to think about, and just be ready for it, because just like mobile traffic and bot traffic, you can accept it or reject it, and the user experience, or the AI experience in this case, it's going to matter.
Well, that
It's a long refrigerator note, but
that's a long refrigerator note, but it's a good one. I mean, that's just be just anticipating the future of that is eye-opening. You know. I've got well, I'm gonna thank you so much, Tree, for sitting and chatting with me today. This again was very enlightening.
yeah,
Um,
it's a great conversation, and it's also something that we can follow up on, because this is a rapidly growing and changing landscape. Um, so consider this the first conversation.
let's consider this the first one. Yeah, many more to come.